Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
WESN.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Well, we're going to start this show actually with some rather refreshing news rather than get into all the busyness associated with TNT these days. School is closed. Has school closed, by the way? I think was yesterday the last day of school. It's today the last day of school, but it's that time of the year again where students have about 2 months away from home. Parents are trying to figure out how to balance things between work and ensuring that their kids are active and not necessarily up to trouble. But it's that time of the year again. Also, it's taking place across the world, by the way. It's not just for us down here. It's, of course, summer vacation across Europe and across North America. And that being said, of course, traveling happens quite a lot. And we welcome all tourists here to TNT. But there's something that has evolved over the last few years, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is staycations. You've heard of staycations. More and more people are actually staying to get away. They're actually exploring their country or exploring what it is that their environment has to offer. And that's something that we should be doing here in TNT as well. In fact, TNT has quite a lot to offer. I often wonder, though, how many of us have actually participated or actually gotten involved in all that TNT has to offer. And it was, to my surprise, but in a very good way, rather delightful, not for the very first time, but for the first time for 2024 at least, that nationalgeographic.com has actually released an article. They released it on July 3rd, which was 2 days ago, under the banner travel, 7 unmissable outdoor adventures on Trinidad and Tobago. So this is just the headlines of the articles right here, as you can see. If you want to read it in full, you can go online to the National Geographic website. You can have an opportunity to just browse through it and give you some ideas. But they've described TNT as waterfalls, dramatic cliff faces, and rainforests abound the islands of TNT, creating the ideal setting for an adventure, from cycling along the rugged coast to horse riding on the beach. This list is 7 particular adventures. By the way, how many of you guys watching have actually cycled along the coast? In fact, not even a cycle along the coast. How many of you guys actually know how to ride a bicycle to begin with? I mean, how many of you all have actually gone through the stages of riding a bicycle, from having your training wheels at the back to fully riding a bicycle? I mean, it's one thing to say it's great exercise. It's wonderful leisure. It helps so much as it releases the stress. And I know that I am seeing more and more hiking groups and bicycle groups popping up all over, especially on social media. They have all these groups popping over, and they are participating in what TNT has to offer. But cycling along the rugged coastline and horse riding on the beach, and that's become so popular in Tobago. Recently I had some friends who went to Tobago, and that was on their to-do list. They spent a weekend in Tobago, and they said they had to go horse riding in Tobago. Apparently, it was absolutely fantastic. I wish I could experience it. I haven't experienced it as yet, but it's on the list. So actually, as I said, if we are looking at the description of TNT according to National Geographic Online, it says TNT is known for its beautiful beaches, stunning coastline, and colorful carnivals. The twin island nation of TNT is also home to a wealth of natural wonders, which, by the way, Ricardo Mead every Wednesday on AM Prime stresses about that, about how TNT is home to natural wonders. We're not just speaking about the creatures and critters that call TNT their home, it's just the environment on a whole that we have. And when you focus on biodiversity in the Caribbean, many a times these stations or these organizations focus a lot heavily on TNT because of our coastline, but because of our habitat. So what we really have in TNT, I keep using the example that there's this program, it's called Wild Caribbean. It's an hour long, and for 45-50 minutes of that hour-long program, it focused only on Trinidad and Tobago because of the natural wonders that we have. We're blessed, though. We're really blessed. I hope we look after it. It says, with a tropical climate and lush environment, both Caribbean islands offer birding, hiking, and swimming, plus the opportunity to explore rainforests and coastal trails on foot. So let's now take a look at the 7 experiences that they are suggesting that you have to do when you're in TNT. The first one, of course, is go bird watching at the Acerite Nature Center. Formerly a cocoa and coffee estate, TNT's Acerite Nature Center is now a bird watcher's dream. Located in the forest, it's found along the picturesque Blanchisseuse Road at an altitude of 1,180 feet and is home to more than 170 bird species. That is incredible. 170 bird species if you go to the Acerite Nature Center. I wonder if you'll get to see all 170. That's incredible, but you realize more and more. I know that recently Hadco Experiences refurbished Acerite Nature Center within recent years. They really brought it up, and locals have been speaking about how expensive it is to stay at Acerite Nature Center. It was one of the criticisms that I saw, I witnessed on social media when Hadco Experiences started really pushing and advertising for the Acerite Nature Center. And I have to admit, it is a bit pricey, but guess what? You really get what you're paying for, because the packages they were offering actually included, if I'm not mistaken, including breakfast, lunch, and afternoon tea. As part of your daily package, accommodation, part of the hiking trails and experiences. It had guides as part of that. You get what you pay for. I mean, really, we spend so much money on one carnival costume for 2 days. You could spend some of that money and spend 2 days at Acerite Nature Center. You'll enjoy it. I have not been since they've actually refurbished it. I want to go, and I hope to go soon. But go bird watching at the Acerite Nature Center. From what I'm hearing, the reviews thus far, it's breathtaking. I'd like to. What else does National Geographic say that you need to do when you're in TNT? Hike to Argyle Waterfall through Mainridge Forest Reserve. I have never been to Argyle Waterfall. So even as I'm reading this list to you, and I'm telling you, these are the recommendations on the part of National Geographic, I'm also learning a lot for myself. I've never been to Argyle Waterfall. I don't even think I've been near to the Mainridge Forest at all in Tobago. You keep hearing about Mainridge. I think it's one of the oldest protected areas in the Western Hemisphere. But hike to Argyle Waterfall, I've never been. Tobago's twisting roots of Indian almond and bamboo form cool, magical archways through the forest. Yeah, protected since 1776. There you go. Oh, okay, great. The Mainridge Forest Reserve forms the spine of the island, with winding pathways, cascades, and caves, which are perfect for hikes. As you wander past, you may spot lizards and armadillos within the foliage. There are a number of hikes through rainforest with plenty of knowledgeable guides on hand at the reserve. Don't miss out on the spectacular Argyle Waterfalls. Hey, Ryan Gomez-Burke, I know you've seen this list. Have you been to the Argyle Waterfall and to the Mainridge Forest Reserve? He's telling me many times. That's my director. He's been there many a times. I haven't been there once. But by the way, if you know Ryan Gomez-Burke personally, he's the gentleman that I call him the backbone of WESN. Without him, this place wouldn't be where it is. Ryan Gomez-Burke has been everywhere in TNT. Ryan Gomez-Burke doesn't need a passport. He's a passport in himself. He's been everywhere in TNT. So for me to probably even ask him that question as to whether or not he's been at Argyle Waterfall or Main Ridge Forest Reserve, well done, Ryan Gomez-Burke. I think you're going to have to take all of us here at WSN on a tour. We haven't been there. Mile, have you been to the Argyle Waterfall and Main Ridge Forest Reserve? You see, he's never been. Mile and I are probably around the same age, and we haven't been. So we have to go on a tour there. Let's go to something that I hope that this is at least one thing on this list that you all have had the opportunity to do. Number 3, spot leatherback turtle hatchlings in Grand Riviere. This is something I had the opportunity to do when I was a little boy, and I will never forget that experience because we saw the leatherback turtle actually make its way from the shore onto the beach itself, and it was quite incredible to see that turtle make that journey, but to also dig the nest. You know, the way it dug its nest, seeing it hatch eggs, it was a rather incredible experience. As a little boy, I was in absolute awe. And it says, National Geographic says, experience the moving sight of female leatherback turtles coming to the shore to lay their eggs in the sand. Some months later, the young turtles will scurry to the sea. You can see the hatchlings between the months of March to August at the Mount Plaisir Estate Hotel in the village of Grand Riviere. Expert guides will take you to the shoreline. Yeah, you have to be very careful about respecting the habitats and protecting the local environment. And recently, videos, I'm not entirely sure how old those videos were, but they were circulating on social media of vehicles parked on the beaches. Vehicles parked on protected sites. Now, we have this thing in TNT where we refer to these places as protected, and not entirely sure who's protecting them. I really don't know. It doesn't seem as though you have people there all the time that's actually keeping an eye on these nesting areas. That's a different story for a different day. But the point is, there's a level of personal responsibility as well. Parking your vehicle on the beach is unnecessary. It really is unnecessary. There's no need at all for us to do that. But when the vehicles were leaving, they damaged a lot of nests. A lot of eggs were lost. Because of that, we're only just contributing to the endangerment of these species. But anyway, back to this story about spotting leatherback turtles. I was there. I saw the leatherback turtle actually make its way up, dig its nest, lay its eggs. But we were also very privileged to actually see some of the baby turtles make its way to the water. That in itself was incredible. We were allowed, at least at that time years ago, to hold the baby leatherback turtles in our hand. I was given that opportunity. Incredible. Now, if you have not done this, this is something is right here. You don't even have to go to Tobago too. You can do it right here in Trinidad. We've got 2 months. Parents, make the time as best as possible and take your kids as well as yourself. You probably have some hardback adults in TNT that have never got to experience this. Go and experience it. It's quite incredible, but it's also education. It is education. You get a fun adventure, you get education out of it as well. Number 4 on the list, explore the coral reefs of the shores of Little Tobago. Head to the waters of the small island of Little Tobago to see what's thought to be the largest brain coral in the Caribbean. I think we could all use a piece of that in our heads. The site known as Kelliston Drain is a renowned dive location of Little Tobago and can be visited as part of glass bottom boat tours. All right, so I have been on a glass bottom boat tour. I have gone to Nyland Pool. I honestly can't, because this was a while, I can't recall if we went to Little Tobago. We probably did. I can't recall if we went off the coast of Little Tobago, but it's certainly something on the list as well that National Geographic is recommending that you do. But by the way, look at this. National Geographic is promoting TNT. Many of us should utilize the opportunities that we have, and many of us Again, part of a staycation, stay to get away, stay to relax, stay to experience adventures. Number 5, bike the lesser explored rugged coast. This is what we were talking about in the beginning. How many of you all actually know how to ride a bike? Take a scenic cycle ride through the Toco area along the wild north coast of Trinidad, enjoying uphill and downhill twists and turns. The Toco main road allows cyclists a glimpse of dramatic sea views as they weave in and out of country villages and forests. I'm challenging you all this vacation to learn to ride a bicycle. You know, climb a tree. Although I don't know many people like doing that anymore. I mean, that's things we used to do as a kid. We used to climb trees. We used to climb it barefoot. We used to ride bicycle barefoot. Everything was barefoot. We used to play football and cricket in the road, and that's different. It depends on where you live, you know. But I know TNT is changing. Times are changing, but still, I mean, I always say I was one of the fortunate ones. I had some of the best childhood memories, and I'm probably one of the last few in TNT. I'm talking about generation-wise that will get to experience certain things, again, because the landscape is evolving. Number 6, ride a horse along the shore at Buku Bay. The fishing village of Buku on Tobago is fringed by mangroves and foliage, and its long stretch of pristine beach offers perfect conditions for swimming and snorkeling. Book a private or group horse riding tour from Explore Shares Guide and watch local fishermen pull in their daily catch as you ride past. I've never gotten the opportunity to do this. This is something I would like to do. There are 2 things in Tobago I really want to experience apart from the horse riding on Buku Bay. It's also the bioluminescence at night. I would love to experience that as well. That looks enchanting. And finally, according to National Geographic, one of the things that you must do, and the final thing on the list, spy red howler monkeys and the Nariva Swamp, close to Trinidad's Manzanilla Beach. In the Nariva Swamp, accessible by kayak or dinghy in the wet season, or accessible by kayak or dinghy in the wet season. I just had to kind of like, you know, read that over, because I thought they were saying that you could access TNT only by kayak or dinghy in the wet season, or on foot in the dry season. Found within the swamp is the Bush Wildlife Sanctuary, home to more than 200 species of birds and animals. Right, so I've encouraged you all this morning to take part in adventures. I have not heard, this is the first time I am learning of the Bush Wildlife Sanctuary at the Nariva Swamp. And I will tell you, I have been to Manzanilla many a times. I was in Manzanilla about a month ago, and I have never been to the Nariva Swamp. So hearing about the Bush Wildlife Sanctuary for the very first time, home to more than 200 species of birds and animal, Ricardo Means will be terribly upset at the fact that I'm learning about this for the first time. You can go see macaws or keep an eye out for the lively red howler or capuchin monkeys swinging in the silk cotton trees. Oh God, silk cotton trees. As part of our folklore here in TNT, ladies and gentlemen, we must know about that. But I never heard of the Bush Wildlife Sanctuary, so that's something that I need to do as well over the course of the next few months. Ladies and gentlemen, you can visit nationalgeographic.com and click under the travel banner. It's an article that was published just 2 days ago, so it's at the top of the list of 7 unmissable things to do while in TNT. That's the banner for the article. Go online. It gives you a lot more information than we've shared with you this morning, and it actually has the links as well to certain pages or to certain websites where you can get more information. So Trinidad and Tobago is an absolutely beautiful place. We have a lot to offer. We have a lot to give. Let's utilize it. And many people are not traveling because they simply can't afford to. I understand that. This is why this is excellent, because it's all part of a staycation where you could learn about TNT and you could appreciate your environment a lot more. So I hope you learned something this morning, because I certainly did. We're going to take a break here on the program, and when we return, we'll continue a good news conversation this morning. We'll be right back.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the normalization committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No.
Let's go to the last part.
Coming soon to WESN.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren. Coming soon to WESN.
Actually, in conversations off air, I was just telling my next guest that a couple of weeks ago, I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues here at WESN. We were speaking about handwriting. The conversation was simply about the fact that we've become so accustomed to using these devices, such as laptops, such as phones, that sometimes picking up a pen feels taboo to us. And even, going to write a note, for example, you struggle. You want to try and be clear in terms of your writing. You want to try and be neat. For some of you all out there who are super neat freaks and for picking up a pen for the first time in weeks, months, that happens, by the way. Don't be surprised if I tell you that people have not picked up a pen for months. Because you see this device right here, it does everything for us. To a certain extent, it's probably made us a bit lazy. But we'll get into that in a bit. Because one lady is actually doing her part to try and correct this. Through Victoria Creates TT, founder and calligrapher Victoria Barkley is trying to bring back the art of handwriting. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome to the program Ms. Barkley. Good morning. Hello there. Welcome to Your Prime.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on the program. So let me start by asking you, how did you get into calligraphy? Because it's something that many people don't even know about. They're probably hearing that word for the first time. How did you even get into calligraphy?
So I saw it on Instagram, just scrolling through, and I saw a lady write the letter M. And I immediately fell in love with how she was using the dip pen method. And I told myself, I have to learn this, just based on one letter. And from there, I started to buy books, and I just started to follow the calligraphy masters on YouTube, specifically Paul Antonio, who is a Trinidadian who now lives abroad. But I started to follow him and listen to all his little tips. And from there, I taught myself calligraphy.
Oh, so you're self-taught?
Yes, yes, I am.
So
self-taught from multiple calligraphy books, and just following the YouTube tutorials and just taking the time to do it. And that's how 8 years later, I'm doing it now and actually teaching it now.
That's incredible. You said something in your response to the dip ink method. There are different methods associated with calligraphy?
So usually when people think of calligraphy, they immediately dress back to penmanship days in primary school when we used to use the fountain pen. So I make that distinction very clear because there is a fountain pen and people think, okay, calligraphy, but you can use fountain pens for calligraphy, but it gives you a different style and it also needs a different style. Dip pen methods will give you a different effect. It also uses a different type of ink. It's not as watery. So you get a different overall look to your script compared to a fountain pen or, maybe a loaded pen, which is what we use regular writing. We use a ballpoint pen, which is already a loaded pen. But a dip pen is using an inkwell and a nib and a holder. So it's like the complete old school style, how you would use a quill. So that dip pen method is what I refer to when I speak about calligraphy.
Well, I'm probably really old-fashioned because my opinion is you really cannot beat the good old fountain pen when it comes to writing. But, this is the thing. As a teacher, what do you think is the reason why it is that handwriting has become so poor? There are even those that may suggest that handwriting is dead. Typing is what's dominating everything. We understand why they'd make that suggestion. Do you agree that handwriting is dead? If so, what's caused it?
To some extent. I wouldn't say it's completely dead because we still use it. It's just we don't use it in the manner we used to, maybe, where handwriting was really, you took your time and you had your little penmanship class and you made sure to write really neatly. So I wouldn't say it's completely dead because we still use handwriting to some extent. Even the keyboard, you would find that unless you are in a physical office, you may not use the keyboard. So you're more using the tap of the phones or you're using a tap on a tablet. So what I think though is that it's just because of technology, we are just evolving into a different style of writing. So we are more using the computer and we're more using tap to, just work our way around sending a message. So I guess it's just as technology is evolving, we're just using what is the current messaging tool, and that is what's in right now. So you wouldn't have the traditional keyboard anymore. So people are losing that. It's basically a loss of the fine motor skills, which is unfortunate. So this is why I think that the handwriting itself and trying to encourage especially children to keep up that handwriting is so vital. It shouldn't be dead. It really shouldn't be something that we say, oh well, we don't need to use anymore. I think it really still needs to be implemented and still needs to be done. It's just people might not feel like they have the time. Again, we live in a very fast society where everything needs to be quick. So writing a message seems to take longer compared to actually just typing something or just tap, 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 or even text to speech. Now you can talk and it types for you, So I think it's just the time people have to actually dedicate to it is what is being lost, that patience for time to actually write.
So it's also a matter of conscience. We're not entirely conscious of our writing skills, or we're not entirely aware of it. Do you think that calligraphy actually teaches you that? Do you think you become more and more conscious of your skills or how your skills are developing if it is that you practice a bit more with calligraphy or even penmanship? Penmanship, by the way, I'll get into in a moment, but more so conscience.
Calligraphy and penmanship are different. I like to tell my students they are like two cousins, but they're not the same thing. So, for example, you can have really great handwriting, but you can not be a calligrapher. Or you can have really bad handwriting, like me, sorry to say. It's not the great, it's not the best, but it's readable, but can be a great calligrapher. So it's honestly what you allocate your time to and your practice will show. And that is what I tell my students all the time, that it is a practice-oriented thing. So if you don't practice taking the time to slow down and actually form the letters for your handwriting, you are not going to see it get better. So if, for example, you're just scribbling the letters, let's say a doctor who doesn't have time to form proper letters, they will just try to scribble down notes, and it's based on how much time they have to actually sit and write the letter formations. And that is the problem. How much time do you really have, and how much time do you spend with the letters to remember how they are formed to actually write them? So what I would say is that you don't have to have calligraphy to have a good handwriting, but you do need, and when we get to penmanship, you do need to practice spending time with the letters, practice the letter formations to be able to see your handwriting definitely improve.
But the thing is, I'm now coming to penmanship. Is penmanship still a part of the curriculum, especially in primary schools? That was something that was a part of the curriculum. When I was in primary school, we had to get our penmanship book. We would spend half an hour just practicing letters, for example. Is that still part of everyday curriculum in primary school?
From what I am gathering from talking to other teachers is that it's not a set class. So when I was in primary school, I remember it being a set class, and we had penmanship class on the timetable. But it's not a set class. So it is as they are in class, they are doing their writing. And also it is as they are doing the writing, the teacher may come and correct you. But definitely in preschool, it is something that they learn, of course, because they're now learning the letters, learning how to form the letters. But as they move up to what you would consider first year, second year, they would still have the writing and how to write the letters, because they're now forming words and sentences. So they would focus on the handwriting, but it's still not a set class. So it is just as they are writing, you will correct the handwriting. You may tell the parents, okay, you might need to work on this. You have additional work to work on it. But definitely, the school that I am at, they are focusing on it to make it like part of it. So, it is extra work to do. You practice your handwriting at home. You practice your handwriting in class. But it's not a set timetable item.
So handwriting is not as good as it used to be, or as good as it could be, because penmanship is not necessarily a structured class anymore. So that we're also losing the art of penmanship.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think so. And also too, again, we have children coming in now. They have to learn to be aware, that finger awareness they just don't have, because again, everything is this one finger tap on the screen kind of thing. But they need to be aware of all the fingers to be able to use a tool, and it's like it's a lost skill. I mean, in preschool, they would practice it where you use something as simple as plasticine, coloring. That is vital for their fine motor skill development, and parents may not know that, but something as simple as you encouraging your child to color at home, buying plasticine at home for them to play with, strengthens their hand in the way that we would use, let's say, like a stress ball, and you squeeze those muscles and you strengthen that hand. Plasticine encourages them to do that. So that's why those things are important for them as they're learning these fine motor skills. Something as simple as cutting skills. You see it a lot. I teach art as well. And you see it a lot in the art room where children don't know how to use a scissors properly and successfully. And it's so unfortunate. And that's just a matter of their fine motor skills is underdeveloped, So all these things, there are multiple reasons why their handwriting is not how it should be. And something as simple as how you sit at a desk and how you hold the tool, what fingers you're holding the tool with, is all part of stuff that you would have learned in penmanship class that maybe isn't happening right now because we don't have a penmanship class.
You know, that's something it slipped my mind. The fact that muscle memory even helps you in respect to pressure and how pressure actually affects your handwriting. That's something I totally forgot, you know.
Yeah. And that is honestly the first class of my calligraphy class. That introduction, teaching them how to sit down, why we sitting down in a certain way to allow you to breathe better, to not hurt your shoulders, hurt your neck, hurt your lower spine. All that is part of writing. Just how your posture and how you position the paper, how you hold the tool to allow the pressure in the hand, right? Because what people think is that we just write, but when you write and you have a certain pressure that you write at, and that is what you see in calligraphy. There are two pressures, or maybe you have one pressure, and that's what gives you the thick and the thin letters. So it's writing at a different pressure, and all of that is affected by how you may sit down. So if children are lying down at their desk, they cannot properly get that shoulder transfer of the weight to write at the steady pressure, because their spine is not supporting them, you know? So all of these small factors are being lost because, you know, again, we don't really have that structured class as to how to do these things, and it's not being maybe heavily practiced. And maybe even if it is being practiced in school, it's maybe not being reiterated at home. So we can't just say, okay, at school you learn it, but at home you practice a different thing, because remember, it's muscle memory. So if at home they're doing something, you know, they're lying down to write, or they're holding the tool different at home, they're not practicing scissors skills, they're not practicing any fine motor skill development, and they're just tapping at home, there's so much a teacher can do.
There's a whole science to this. There's a whole science to handwriting and the art. So then now speak to me about the journey of creating Victoria Creates, because you really studied this. Tell me about establishing Victoria Creates and what it is that you're really hoping to achieve with people actually embarking on this journey with you.
So basically Victoria Creates encompasses three things. It encompasses calligraphy, of course, where I do calligraphy services, of course, in the wedding industry. And I also pen letters, because especially around Valentine's Day and Christmas, because I want to, again, my whole goal was to translate the sender's emotion to the recipient through writing. So this is why I used to make greeting cards, and I now do like love letters, appreciation letters, even proposal letters, because again, I want someone to open a letter and feel like you took the time to think about these words about me, you know. And I think that is being lost through a text message. You don't feel that, yes, you'll feel a straight away about a text message, but there's something about receiving a physical letter that is like, you took the time to think about me, you know, and that is something that I love to translate. So that is where Victoria Creates kind of started. So it involves calligraphy, and it also involves art, where I teach art as well. And there is also, and I do art because I am firstly an artist, but also it encompasses this education aspect where I teach art to kids, and I also teach calligraphy to kids, and not kids, sorry, adults. But I am also branching off into now doing penmanship for kids. So it's essentially my way of giving a gift to people and making people remember that we need to slow down and take time to appreciate something as simple as a letter, something as simple as a note that is handwritten, you know. So this is what I try to convey through Victoria Creates as much as I could.
Do you think that as we get older, I mean, and I'm speaking about your experience now, do you think as we get older that our handwriting becomes more ineligible, it becomes degenerative, our handwriting skills? Do you think that we're losing that art or that touch as we get older?
If we continue not practicing that, it comes down to fine motor skills. If we continue not practicing that, then yes. But if we continue incorporating it as much as we could, then it can be saved and salvaged. And of course, in school, you have to write. So I don't think it will be completely lost. But if we start to incorporate, okay, all they're using is digital devices in school or tablets, and we get super modern in terms of how we are dealing with how they are taking notes in school, then we can see that on a steady almost decline. And you would find that only the older generation would be using instruments to write with, So I think it's just how, as technology is evolving, I think maybe that could affect that answer.
So you said that actually you are doing calligraphy for adults, you're doing penmanship, or you're going to start doing penmanship for kids. So then, is it that over the course of the next 2 months, we refer to it as summer vacation. It's not a summer vacation, but you know what I mean, those 2 months away from school, do you have courses that you're offering to the public?
Yes. So I currently have a beginner's calligraphy foundational course, and that teaches persons how to start up and do their calligraphy practice. So that is level 1 of the course, where I teach you basically everything you need to know to build a stable calligraphy practice and to really start establishing your calligraphy. So that is what I do with adults. And for children, what I am beginning to do, I'm beginning to start to do it in camps, or I am wanting to do it, as I say, it's now in the creation for penmanship. Is because I've been having, over the last few years, people ask me, can you create something for penmanship? Because I've been doing the calligraphy course now for 4 years. So people have been beginning to ask me, what do you do for kids? So I am now generating something and I like to create my own books based on steady practice. So I am now creating something for penmanship where I would like to incorporate art, because I believe that children need to find penmanship fun. I mean, I remember doing penmanship in school, and it was kind of monotonous, where we just copy what is on the board and that was it.
I think we went to the same school then.
So I thought, okay, what can I do to make a child interested? And I thought, okay, in art, one of the first topics that you need to learn is lines and shape. And I thought, okay, so maybe I can incorporate lines and shape as little art pieces for them to learn the formation groups, which are lines and shapes, and they just not realize it, that they are learning penmanship. So I decided that, yes, of course, you need to learn the foundations, and yes, of course, you need to learn the groupings, but I figured maybe I can incorporate art in it, and as they are practicing a foundational group or a letter group, they will do an art piece after. I also started to talk to a lot of the creative writing teachers to formulate it, and I wanted to, of course, incorporate creative writing in it, so where they could now, maybe as their final piece, because I always like to have a final piece. That's just how I am as an artist. You work towards building a storybook. So you are practicing your calligraphy, your penmanship, you are practicing your illustration skills, you are practicing now creating a little book that you would have made. And that essentially is your take home at the end of the penmanship classes. So I want kids to feel like they are creating something fun and it's not just monotonous writing. So this is why I've been taking the time to really formulate, talk to teachers, get their tips, and now coming out to do something with penmanship for kids. So that is in the making for actually August.
Well, one thing is certain, you're very passionate about what you do, and it's exciting to learn of the plans that you have. But the thing is, how do you expect to, or how do you hope to translate that passion that you have to your students? Whilst I understand the activities that you just outlined and the things that you have in the works or that you're planning, getting that passion and enthusiasm is a different story.
Yes, I agree. But what I have learned through teaching art actually is that students pick up on the teacher's vibe. Right? So if the teacher is coming in and saying, okay, today we are learning letter group 1, and in this group we have A, You'd be very bored. You'd be very bored. So if you come and you make it, if the teacher comes in and they say, okay, guys, today we learn so and so, and we learn in this letter group. What does letter group looks like to you? And you get that student interaction. What shapes are we seeing? What lines are we seeing? And they have an opportunity to talk and be involved. And then once you teach them the letter group and once you teach them, okay, let's move our hands like this, you incorporate something fun, for example, the art. The art is what is going to keep them active and keep them alive, because now I'm going to incorporate and say, okay, guys, from the letter formation group, let's make an African pattern. Let's make a Peruvian pattern. And I can show them examples of it in fiber arts. Or I can show them an example of it from what a line artist would have done. And then their little eyes just open because they see now color and they see, action happening. And then they want to do it. So indirectly, they are feeding off of that visual. They're feeding off of that teacher energy of wanting to be passionate about it. And once you capture that, vibe in the classroom, once you get that vibe in the classroom, they will only be receptive to learn it. So to me, to some extent, this is how the teacher presents it and how the teacher delivers the information. And that's what I realized with art and with kids. They need that constant stimulation, and they need also to be involved. You can't just give them information and expect them to just receive it. They need to be interested and they need to be involved, and also they need physical stimulation too. So I think it's a lot as to how the teacher presents it. They will capture that passion.
Well, as we're coming to the end of this interview, and I really want to thank you very much for sharing your passion with us this morning, but also getting our minds thinking about the skill of just our handwritings and the art associated with it. How can people get in touch with you if they want to participate in what you have to offer through Victoria Creates?
Sure. So they can find me on Instagram or on Facebook. You can use the handle Victoria Creates on Facebook, or you can use Victoria Creates TT on Instagram. And there's my email, there's my contact numbers. You can always message me and find out more about my calligraphy courses that will be starting up. I have a cycle for July and August coming up, but it's something that I run monthly. So for further details, persons can always check me on those two platforms.
Well, Miss Victoria Barkley, thank you very much for joining me on the program this morning. Thank you for your time and for sharing. Well, it's good to hear such passion. You don't get often.
Be practicing your handwriting.
Believe you me, you have me thinking a lot. I think I need to run and get. We all, when we entered, I think was it standard 1 or standard 2. We had to run and get for the first time the fountain pens with the cartridges. I'm thinking I probably need to go and get one of those again.
You just need a pencil. You don't even need the fountain pen to dirty your clothes anymore.
God boy, yes. Used to think you were doing tie-dye with a fountain pen. Thank you very much, Ms. Barkley. Do have a great day. Thank you so much.
You too. Take care. Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're continuing with some good news this morning. I like that, man, that level of passion, and it really uplifts you, noting that there's still a lot of good out there and a lot of good to be offered and is being offered. And speaking about good news, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts piloted a debate on the National Musical Instrument Bill 2024 in the House of Representatives yesterday. The bill provided for the designation of the steel pan as the national musical instrument of the Republic of TNT. That bill was passed. So the steel pan is now officially the national instrument of TNT following the passage of that bill. Bearing in mind, before it was the de facto national instrument, now it's the official national instrument because of the passage of this legislation in Parliament. Yes, see, that is very good news. There is just a little bit of downfalls associated with it, because there is an interview that I'd like to get my hands on that Camille Pascal, former host of One-on-One, had on the station, where he interviewed Dr. Justin Koo, speaking about copyright laws and speaking about the PAN as an example of copyright laws and patents, how that's actually going to impact TNT with steel pan being played all over the world and even being produced and manufactured all over the world. That's a separate thing, but overall, it's good news, ladies and gentlemen. We should be very happy. Maybe we'll get some steel pan music on AM Prime later on. But for now, we're going to take a break here, and when we return, the conversations continue.
Here is our WESN News on the hour. I'm Naomi Macnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Prime Minister Rowley says a religious cult that infiltrated the SSA was planning a possible coup to topple him. Jamaica Prime Minister reports no loss of life or major infrastructure damage in wake of Hurricane Beryl. Internationally, renewed push underway to end bloodshed in Gaza. Now for the details. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says the Strategic Services Agency was infiltrated by a religious cult that wanted to replace the country's political leadership. In a statement in Parliament on Wednesday, Dr. Rowley said the SSA was also compromised by the procurement of high-powered weapons, training of persons to use them, and establishment of an unauthorized militarized operational unit. These are among the findings of an audit to the SSA that was launched in March after Director Major Roger Best was sent on administrative leave. His service was subsequently terminated in May.
Several family members and associates of particular persons and of a particular church were found to have been surreptitiously employed in the agency. Such persons belonged to a cult which was arming itself while preaching a doctrine for trained military and paramilitary personnel with a religious calling to be the most suitable persons to replace the country's political leadership. There were existing high levels of influence on the affairs of the agency to the detriment of national security.
Prime Minister Rowley said these were among the several disturbing occurrences reported by the special branch of the police service to the National Security Council, which led to the installation of new SSA leadership. Jamaica is continuing to assess the impact of powerful Hurricane Beryl, which struck with heavy winds and rain, damaging buildings and falling trees on the Caribbean island. The Category 4 storm brought winds of up to 130 miles per hour on Jamaica's southern coast. Jamaica Prime Minister Andrew Holness says he has not gotten any major reports of infrastructure damage or loss of life during the passage of Hurricane Beryl. In a press conference at around 6 o'clock last evening, Mr. Holness said the impact of the hurricane was not as bad as was predicted, but he said Jamaicans need to stay indoors until they are told it is safe to leave their homes. Holness said he had gotten reports of storm surges and would need a report from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management on any damage to coastal infrastructure. He said there were about 500 people in shelters. Internationally, a renewed push is underway to end the bloodshed in Gaza as both Israel and Hamas speak to mediators about a long-stalled ceasefire plan. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will convene a meeting of his security cabinet on Thursday to discuss the latest proposal from Hamas. Hamas on Wednesday said it presented new ideas to Qatari, Egyptian, and Turkish mediators on how to reach a ceasefire and captive exchange deal. Israel confirmed it is evaluating Hamas's comments. The development comes as Israel hammers southern Khan Yunis, Gaza's second-largest city, from where it ordered an estimated 250,000 Palestinians to flee, killing at least 7 people in an airstrike near its main hospital. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us this morning as we continue the conversations. We are shifting the conversation a bit this morning and focusing on a matter of great urgency. It seems as though that as much help as we can get for this cause, we are really trying our very best as the Trinidad and Tobago Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, the TTSPCA, has found itself in a rather uncertain, a critical position. In fact, in a statement released last Friday by the TTSPCA, it explained that the society shelters, which play a vital role in stray animal control and the prevention of suffering of unwanted animals, is finding difficulty as it tries to continue the funding of these activities. So I'm joined this morning by the chairman of the TTSPCA, Ms. Sita Kuruvilla, and she joins us virtually. Good morning and welcome to AM Prime. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Keaton. Thank you for having me this morning.
Well, Ms. Kuruvilla, as much as you're smiling, I know that the situation has become rather critical. If you can just please describe to us exactly what is happening with the TTSPCA and its operations at this time.
Right. Well, good morning, everyone. Yes, we're experiencing financial difficulties. You know, we are an open admission shelter, which means that we try not to turn people away if they really don't have any alternatives to giving up their animals. What we found over the last few years, certainly since the post-COVID period, is that we just cannot balance our books. The cost of inputs into the shelter have increased dramatically. So it's much more expensive to keep the operations going. Basic inputs like food and cleaning supplies, and certainly a lot of the medical supplies that we need, drugs, you know, vaccines, wormers, treatments for ectoparasites and so on. All of those things have increased dramatically. And on the other side, the public are not even able to pay sort of basic, the minimal charges that we may place on certain services. So a lot of the times people just say they don't have any funds. So what we're spending far more than we're earning. Some days we take in practically, you know, like $100 and so on. We're in a really difficult position, and we have put out an appeal to the public to assist us.
So you are also seeing, apart from, because I know that the TTSPC charges small fees for certain services. You've just spoken about that. But people are coming and saying that they actually can't afford to pay for such services. In conjunction with that, is it that the TTSPC is also seeing a decline in donations by the public?
Sorry. Cool.
No, that's fine.
We are actually very grateful to the public, because we have been getting, what we get a lot of is food donations. And that is a huge help to us, because we may spend something like $30,000 a month on food. And so a lot of that cost has been, we have had assistance from the public. So at least in terms of food, we've been hoping because of public assistance. But we pay commercial rates for utilities. We pay for a lot of other services, including sometimes external veterinary services. We have to carry out basic repairs to the facility. We have, of course, a full-time staff who work 7 days a week. You know, all of these are ongoing recurrent expenses. And so, you know, you need enough funding to come in to maintain your operations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we are falling down. Because the public, you know, people come in, either it's their own animals that they want to give up, or sometimes they rescue animals off the street. And sometimes they don't have the funds to pay, or they're not willing to because they say it's not their responsibility. And, you know, it puts us in an awkward position because we don't really want to send people away if the alternative is that they're going to abandon the animals. And often people will tell us that quite plainly. If you don't take these dogs in, or if you don't take this litter of kittens in, we're just going to drop them. I don't want to drop them on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yesterday, for example, that's exactly what happened. Someone came and they dropped off, and we're seeing it quite regularly. They drop the animals off outside the shelter. They don't even come in. So, you know, we have a lot of animals coming in, and often, well, there's no other option for them. There's nowhere else for them to go. And so we are overwhelmed with numbers. We're completely overwhelmed.
But I'm sorry, I don't mean to digress, but I also, you said people are dumping their animals outside the shelter. I also recently learned that people at times are also dumping their deceased animals outside the shelter as well.
Well, that happens as well. I mean, at the moment we have that situation. But I mean, our bigger concern is, you know, that we're getting, you know, we turn up on mornings and we having to run after terrified animals that are dropped on the road outside, or we're picking up boxes of puppies and kittens.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you know, that we have a certain amount of capacity at the shelter. So when more and more animals come in, we just can't cope.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this situation has really worsened after COVID, because we've seen, as I said, people don't have the funds to care for their animals, or in some cases we've got a lot more coming in because there was a lot of breeding after the COVID period. People were trying to make money by breeding and selling, and then when they found they couldn't, you know, we were getting all these unwanted purebred or semi-purebred dogs. We had a rush of Dalmatians, we had Malinois, we're getting Huskies regularly. They're the new stray dog in Trinidad. You know, so there's the breeding, there's the abandonment, there's the weather, for example. With this period of bad weather, a lot of dogs have escaped from their homes and they're running all over the place. And I mean, every day we're bringing in lost animals. So, you know, there are a number of factors that are just all adding up to a terrible problem out there of stray and abandoned animals.
Mm-hmm. I think there also needs to be some clarity, Ms. Kurula, because there seems to be some confusion within the public domain as to whether or not the TTSPCA is government funded and assisted, or if it's an NGO, a charitable organization. Now, I mean, from what you said thus far, I've got the answer, but there still needs to be some clarification for those in the public.
Sure. The TTSPCA is an NGO. It is a charitable organization. It is not a government organization. We run 3 shelters. Well, we used to operate 3 shelters. We had one in San Fernando, the one in Port of Spain, and there's one in Tobago. The one in San Fernando shut down a number of years ago. The land was flooding all the time. We didn't have the funds to deal with the land improvements and rebuild the shelter facility. So that we lost the south facility. We run basically with donations. So we have some charges for services that are quite small, and we find we can't increase them, otherwise, the public wouldn't be able to access the service. And we depend on public donations and occasional tranches from like a trust or one or two of the trusts. We do also constantly apply for corporate sponsorship, but we don't really get a lot of that because our work doesn't fit in with a lot of the corporate social responsibility criteria. So we really what we would like to see is an annual government subvention, because we have actually taken on the government's responsibility in operating these shelter facilities. There are no functioning government facilities in the country. There used to be an old Port of Spain pound, which was really badly run, and that was shut down many years ago. The San Fernando pound is really not operational. I mean, they don't even have resources to buy food for the animals that are there. We have been sending supplies down to the San Fernando pound.
But that actually contradicts what the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs said recently about the new pound being constructed in San Fernando.
Right. Well, that is the same original pound, right, that was always there. Some work was done to improve it somewhat, but really it has not made much of a difference. The capacity is very small, and the location is terrible. I mean, we were totally against them investing in that location again. And there's no budget, it seems, to run the facility, because basics like food and so on are essential. Plus, you need veterinary support, which there doesn't seem to be any veterinary support at the moment. So it's really not a functional facility. So we are actually ending up taking in animals from San Fernando. We got, dog and litter puppies from the San Fernando Hospital. We are working with a group that does a lot on the San Fernando Wharf, because there's a terrible problem of abandonment there. So we are, our scope of operations, geographic coverage rather, has increased to include San Fernando. And I mean, it's an untenable situation. So what we are asking for is a guarantee that we can operate from year to year. And that can only happen if we can agree on a government subvention that will manage the shortfall that we are experiencing every year, the shortfall between our ability to raise funds through donations or fundraising events and our operational expenses. So that's really what we want. The statement in the Senate, I believe, indicated that the San Fernando pound was fixed up and operational. Well, it isn't. They also said that they have an MOU with the TSPCA, and that is not actually the case. We don't actually have an MOU with the Ministry of Local Government. There is a contract with the Port of Spain Corporation, which just says, well, if they bring dogs into us, they pay something per dog. And thirdly, there was mention of a subvention. And that subvention was actually given to us 2 years ago. In the post-COVID period, we were in dire needs of repair work at the facility because we were losing a lot of our kennels and so on because of lack of maintenance. And we got funding in 2022 to fix up those areas that actually service the corporations.
Mm-hmm. That subvention of $504,457.
Yeah.
How much support, the TTSPC is being an NGO and a charitable organization. Have you received any government support though beyond that subvention that was given $500,000 2 years ago?
Well, we got a subvention in 2014 from the Ministry of Local Government, and that was at the time when the Dog Control Act was proclaimed, 2014. And those funds were really to build a section in the shelter for Class A dogs. So under the Dog Control Act, there are certain regulations that specify, kennel facilities for Class A dogs. So that those funds were used to build a section, a Class A section at the shelter, and also for us to operate that Class A section for a year and provide a free service for the corporations or the public bringing in Class A dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a specific purpose for that subvention.
It seems as though...
sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You got a subvention in 2022, and the time before that was in 2014. That's incredible. That's a gap of 6 years. That you... And that's the thing. Ms. Corvia, how long can the TTSPCA sustain its operations? In its current position, how long can the TTSPCA continue to operate?
We can't. we just cannot sustain. Right now we are on a mad push to for donations, and we're asking people to even commit to a standing order so that we know that we can cover our operational costs monthly. But we know that we cannot survive without a subvention. We have basically used up our savings. We have, our savings are what have supported us over the last couple of years, and we have used up our savings, and we have basically just set aside enough funds to cover a shutdown of the facility. So that is why we're on this big push to try to raise funds and to get monthly commitments. But we have looked at all our expenses and our income, and we know the route that we're going, and we know that we cannot survive without a subvention.
And I dare ask, what happens if the TTSPCA shuts down?
Well, I mean, it's, it would be a terrible loss, because it's one of the few places where people can just, give up animals, and, that they will be taken in. We can't promise that we will always keep them, and we tell people this quite plainly, because, the reality is, if you have 100 and let's say you have 100 kennels, and you're getting in 1,000 animals in a year, there's no way that you can accommodate all of them. And a lot of the animals that come into us are, some of them are in bad shape already. So, we're under severe pressure. We have to make a lot of hard decisions all the time, but we believe in the prevention of suffering. Trinidad is not in a position right now to say that we can save all the animals out there. We just can't. We are in such a critical position that what we are focusing on is preventing the suffering of those that have no alternative place to go, and trying to get good homes for the ones that have potential for rehoming. And I mean, that has become increasingly difficult for us. I mean, we go to great lengths to make our animals adoptable. We spay them, we spend time on working on their temperament, we make sure they're in good health. And we do a lot of promotions and so on, but we're finding it increasingly difficult to get animals adopted out. So, you know, we have a lot coming in, and the adoption rates have slowed. So you know, we're in a really difficult position here.
Ms. Kurvilla, could you please, you know, now is the time to speak to the public. What can they do to assist? How can they help? I know you mentioned at the beginning of the program that you are receiving, you tend to receive quite a lot of donation of food, pet food, animal food, but you know, as much as that is good and we welcome that and we're grateful for that, it doesn't cover the cost of operating and running the shelters. So please, you know, now is the time to speak to the viewing audience.
Yeah, so exactly what you said. I mean, we are really grateful for the food donations and the cleaning supplies. I mean, those things help us to offset our expenses, and I mean, it's what's really kept us going, and we are so grateful that people you know, grateful for their concern and so on. But at the same time, we need money. You know, we have all the expenses to pay. We have to pay for utilities. We have to cover staff salaries. You know, we have a lot of operational expenses, and so we are on a big drive to try and get funds to come in, and also to get people to commit. Even if you're committing $100 a month would be wonderful. So we know at least every month we have a certain amount of money coming in on top of whatever we are able to earn through our fundraising or service charges for services.
Well, just on that note as well, could people also volunteer in any way to assist with the TTSPCA?
We have a volunteer program. So if people are interested in volunteering, we put them onto our volunteer coordinator, and they send her an email, and she puts them down. She runs an orientation, a periodic orientation for new volunteers. So they're invited to attend an orientation session. We don't take volunteers under the age of 14, because of course, you know, in dealing with animals, there may be some risks here and there. So we have an age limit, but we do get groups of younger people who come in, and they are supervised, you know, for special visits. But we have we have a lot of volunteers and a good volunteer program, which is managed, and people assist with enrichment, that is spending time with animals, socializing, walking them, that kind of thing. And also people assist with fundraising events and so on. So, you know, we're very grateful for volunteers.
Indeed. Ms. Kurvilla, I want to thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning to bring light to the situation. Before you go, the numbers have been on the screen throughout the course of this interview, but I will read it out just to stress the point one more time. If you can assist in any way to the TTSPCA, please call 622-1367 or 628-1615. That's 622-1367, 628-1615. Any donation of any amount at this point goes a long way, will help. And if you just want to donate directly, you can do so to RBC's Rook Greendot branch. It's a checking account number 100094012661446. That's RBC's checking account at Rook Greendot branch number 100094012661446. Please, any sum in any amount will go a long way in assisting the TTSPCA in their operations as they continue to fight for the prevention of cruelty against animals in TNT. Ms. Kurvila, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to the entire team, the entire staff, and to all those who continue to donate to the TTSPCA. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
All the very best. Take care.
Thank you.
For the first hour this morning, I shared good news with you, and we had to have this interview. It's very, very important. These are things in society that need highlighting. We need it to be noticed. We need people to help. We need people to assist. And I hope that very soon that I can share some good news about the TTSPCA in respect to their operations and their financial position. I hope very soon that through this interview and other outreach initiatives on the part of the TTSPCA that we have some good news to share with you. But we will continue to do our part here on AM Prime and on WESN. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the program this morning. Thank you so very much to my guests for joining me, and thank you, the viewer, for joining me, of course. It has been a pleasure indeed. Wishing you a safe day ahead, a productive one. School's out. School's out, so enjoy it and enjoy the weekend ahead. I'm Keaton Shaw, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Folks, we're back and better than ever.
Your show have always appeared to be a show that is focused on going to the cause or looking to the cause.
We hardly ever talk about the white-collar crime, though. We always talk about the ones that involve more as physical violence against individuals.
The citizens will only measure transmission when water starts to flow through their taps.
The Constitution doesn't talk about local election.
Contract mafia that's responsible for looting the country, and they own and operate these politicians.
So if you are running a country and you can't say nothing as a prime minister, please take up your bag and go.
It is not comparative to the murder figures, but it is in fact very high.
I believe he's protecting certain individuals.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward and our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We are small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful. The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of
not no.
Let's go to the last part.
Very much wanting to show that, you know, the future of this country and that there is hope. I think those will be some of the key messages.
Well, it looks like the sun has come out there in London. It was raining quite a bit earlier. Tell us, what sort of change is Labour looking to make in the UK?
It's looking to make a noticeable change. As I said, this trust issue actually permeates the respect that one has for government. And this is why throughout the campaign, Keir Starmer has been very cautious, and indeed the team has been extremely disciplined at sticking to the message. One of the images that was given, because the polls were predicting this landslide, they were very much showing that, in fact, in the last 18 months, and particularly during the 6-week campaign, that big gap in the polls, predicting that Labour very comfortable victory and a defeat, a trouncing really of the outgoing Conservatives, was very plain to see. So I think he will very much want to show that this is a government that is very responsible with its budget, that doesn't promise things that it can't deliver. I think that whole issue of trust, also the fact that he really comes as an ex-Director of Public Prosecutions and Human Rights lawyer in a humble manner to try really and help all of the people, not just the people who voted for the Labour Party, very conscious of those values and wants to very much reintroduce those. And it's about pulling together as a country at a time when, of course, there are not just domestic challenges, whether it is, for example, the energy price crisis, but also the cost of living. That has been a very big, repeated key issue in this election campaign. And of course, the big word, again and again coming out of focus groups, was change. And so that he represents change in the way that they conduct themselves in government. And that being ethical is extremely... Oh, the gates of Downing Street have just opened. There are cheers very much from the people waving their flags, and we see blue lights of the outriders of the police, fresh from Buckingham Palace. Here he comes. The first outriders come in with the ministerial car. Louder cheers now. Of course, the media very attentive, and we will see that podium is out, so the cars will stop. We expect the Keir Starmer to actually be accompanied by his wife. We understand that his children may not be with him in front of the media because they wish to remain discreet and not impose that publicity on them. Very big shouts that you can no doubt hear and see. Keir Starmer will step out of the car. He is 61 years old, and he'll be 62 in September, and it's been a very, very long journey, a short journey from the palace, but a very long journey to power. 14 years during which Conservatives have ruled. An assistant is now coming to the podium, to the lectern, and just put the Keir Starmer's speech. We now are waiting for Keir Starmer to appear from the car and his wife, Lady Victoria. There they are. And so we are going to have, in just a few moments, the very first speech of Sir Keir Starmer, the new UK Prime Minister. Here he is walking up the street, his wife in a bright red dress. Of course, red is the Labour colour. He's stopping. They're embracing people and stopping. Big hugs, waving a flag, more cheers. And in a few moments, we will hear a very important message, the first address to the nation that this new 61-year-old Prime Minister, who's just been to see the head of state at Buckingham Palace and been asked to form a government, will make. He's enjoying and taking his time along with his wife, 51-year-old Lady Victoria, who also, like him, has been a lawyer. Now, I understand, works in the NHS, and he says that that's very important because it allows him to actually really know and understand the pressures, the immense pressures on the National Health Service. The National Health Service, of course, created by many years ago by a Labour government, and which is under very severe pressure, not least because of the COVID pandemic, but also because of it's been nurses' strikes we've had. Still, those are resolved now, but a big hemorrhaging of nurses going abroad, for example, to Australia after being trained. He's not quite at the podium. He will be there in just a few moments. He's enjoying this moment. Of course, he hasn't slept. He has been watching the results. He was in his own constituency, confirmed that he had won his seat here in London. Possibly some of the last hugs before he actually then, we think, goes to the podium, opens the black folder. Here we go. And we're listening to Sir Keir Starmer as the cheers grow even louder. No longer leading the opposition with a new British Labour Prime Minister, a new era. Here we go.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I have just returned from Buckingham Palace, where I accepted an invitation from His Majesty the King to form the next government of this great nation. I want to thank the outgoing Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. His achievement as the first British Asian Prime Minister of our country, the extra effort that will have required, should not be underestimated by anyone. And we pay tribute to that today. And we also recognise the dedication and hard work he brought to his leadership. But now our country has voted decisively for change, for national renewal, and a return of politics to public service. When the gap between the sacrifices made by people and the service they receive from politicians grows this big, it leads to a weariness in the heart of a nation, a draining away of the hope, the spirit, the belief in a better future, that we need to move forward together. Now, this wound, this lack of trust, can only be healed by actions, not words. I know that. But we can make a start today with the simple acknowledgement that public service is a privilege and that your government should treat every single person in this country with respect. If you voted Labour yesterday, We will carry the responsibility of your trust as we rebuild our country. But whether you voted Labour or not, in fact, especially if you did not, I say to you directly, my government will serve you. Politics can be a force for good. We will show that. We've changed the Labour Party, returned it to service, and that is how we will govern. Country first, party second. Yet, if I'm honest, service is merely a precondition of hope, and it is surely clear to everyone that our country needs a bigger reset, a rediscovery of who we are, because no matter how fierce the storms of history, one of the great strengths of this nation has always been our ability to navigate a way to calmer waters. And yet this depends upon politicians, particularly those who stand for stability and moderation, as I do, recognizing when we must